Roll call, please.
Councilmember Perkins,
Here.
Councilmember Rubio,
Here.
Councilmember Veros,
Here.
Vice Mayor Armstrong,
Here.
Mayor Hudson.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. First item, please.
Item 3, announcements. Item 3.1, changes and additions to the agenda. There are no changes. Item 3.2, if you wish to speak under public comment or regarding an agenda item, please fill out a speaker card located in the back of the room and submit it to the city clerk. So item 4, public comment.
Okay, public comment is open. Now is the time for anyone in the audience to address the city council on any item not on tonight's agenda. We don't have any on the presentation, so do we have any cards?
There are no speaker cards.
Okay, there is written one here, if you have it in front of you. I believe it's Jim Blickenstaff. We'll close the public comment. What's next?
Next item is the consent calendar.
Anyone wish to pull an item on the consent calendar?
I'll move the consent calendar, items 5.1 through 5.4.
I'll second.
Oh, no, sorry, change it to Scott.
Oh, yeah, that's all right.
Oh, wait.
No, it's fine. It's
Okay, it
fine,
was
it's
supposed to
fine.
be Scott
That's
first.
fine. It's fine. It's fine.
So everybody,
Yeah, there we go. There
you
we
all
go.
voted? Good. Looks like it's unanimous to me. Okay, next item, please.
Item 6, special presentation. Item 6.1, legislative update and presentation of the 40th anniversary proclamation to the city by California State Assembly member Rebecca Bauer-Kahn.
Okay, so we can post.
So Mayor, we are waiting on the assembly member to arrive, so we may want to defer this item until after the next item.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll defer that till she gets here.
Mr. Mayor, we do need a vote to change the agenda to do so.
I'll move we postpone item 6.1 until the arrival of the assembly member.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none? You don't have any public comment, I assume?
We'll have a-
No, there's no public comment on this item.
Just say all
We'll
in
just
favor.
take a roll. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Seeing none, it passes. We will wait for the assemblyman to get here. What's
Okay,
next?
next item is item 7, deferred consent items, and we are going to pass that. There are none. Item number 8, unfinished business. Item 8.1 is a public hearing, adoption of the ordinance, next in line, amending chapter, I believe it's 12, of Division B7, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare of Title B Regulations of the San Ramon Municipal Code to require the safe storage of firearms in a residence. Staff report by Martin License, our city attorney, and Denton Carlson, police chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On November 14th, the council held an open public meeting and discussion on the gun safety storage ordinance, which, if the council adopts it this evening, will require safety devices such as lock boxes or trigger locks to be used on all firearms within a residence. This is currently state law, except that state law only imposes that requirement when the owner of the firearm knows or should have known that a child is likely to gain access to it without a parent or guardian's permission. So as we discussed last time, the proposed ordinance is going to eliminate the uncertainty of whether a child has a chance of gaining access to a gun because it will require safe storage of that gun under all circumstances. So last time out, the council waived the reading and introduced the ordinance and read by title only. The council then took testimony and after closing the hearing, noted that the staff report talked primarily about nationwide trends and didn't provide information based on actual San Ramon statistics. So the ordinance is set for adoption tonight, but the council also directed that we report on any local statistics that we might have, and to give the public another opportunity to comment on the item before the council makes its decision as to whether to adopt. So Chief Carlson and his group did conduct a review of all firearm discharge and related incidents since January of 2020, including those associated with criminal activity, suicide, and negligent discharge of a firearm within the city. And although there's no definitive answer possible, based on the chief's review, it doesn't appear that any of those prior incidents would have been prevented had the proposed ordinance been in place at that time. The chief is here and may have further details on the numbers. Now, this doesn't mean that the ordinance would be of no benefit at all to the city. The main benefit, as we discussed last time, is clarity. If the council does adopt this ordinance, gun owners will know exactly what the law requires for the storage of their firearms without having to do the analysis of whether or not a child might be present. Now, also, as we discussed previously, the ordinance does have its limitations because it does regulate behavior in the home. The police department would only be able to cite gun owners for violations under very limited circumstances. Ordinarily, an officer would not, for example, have the authority to demand entry to a home on suspicion of an illegally stored firearm in violation of that ordinance. So as a reminder, the council may adopt the ordinance at tonight's meeting. If adopted, it'll take place within 30 days. If the council decides to make changes to the ordinance, we will need a motion to reintroduce the ordinance as amended and then set the revised ordinance for adoption at a future meeting. So with that, I'll turn this back over to the mayor and take any questions you might have. And Chief Carlson
Any
is here to
questions
answer
to
questions
staff?
as well.
I'd like to hear from Chief Carlson if
Okay.
he has anything he'd like to provide.
You want it after you hear, right?
Sure. I think the only thing that I had to add was just a little bit further clarification on the research that we conducted as requested based on the last council hearing. So we went back to January of 2020. We conducted an extensive review of all cases that had occurred within the San Ramon city limits that we had responded to and that we were aware of as a police department associated with some of the items that the city attorney had just mentioned. And based on our review of those incidents, although coming up with a definitive answer of whether this ordinance would have prevented any of these incidents from occurring, I don't know that that's necessarily possible to really say it would have done something. But there was nothing definitive or nothing in any of the incidents that we reviewed and that I personally reviewed, because I did go through all of them myself so I could speak on them. I did not find any where it appeared, based on the documentation and our response and the evidence that we uncovered in the case, where this ordinance would have changed or altered the circumstances of what took place. So I just wanted to add that little clarification there to make sure you're aware of that. And then again, I'm available to answer any questions should you have any associated with the ordinance or our enforcement, or what we could do from the police department side, or what we would do from the police department side associated with this.
Okay, we'll start with questions. Vice Mayor Armstrong, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, and I don't know if this is really for you, Chief, or for the city attorney, but I don't see anywhere in the ordinance as it's written any requirement that a firearm be stored unloaded. Can you confirm that if otherwise stored in an approved storage device or has some kind of a safety device on it, that a firearm may be stored loaded with ammunition if otherwise it's able to be, based on the safety device and everything else?
Yeah, so generally, the safety devices, and not generally, but exclusively the safety devices that are DOJ certified that this ordinance would require, renders the firearm so it cannot be fired. Whether it is a cable lock that goes through the actual magazine well of a handgun, through the opening and where the round would be extracted from the firearm, or a trigger guard that locks the trigger in place and makes it incapable of moving to activate the firing pin, whatever it would be, as long as it is locked and secured, it would not be able to be fired, whether or not there was ammunition inside or not.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. The other question question I had was the ordinance, the way it's drafted right now, lists some exceptions to the requirement to safely store firearms. It says subsection A does not apply when a firearm is carried on the person of or is otherwise in the immediate control and possession of an individual in accordance with applicable local, state, and/or federal laws. So although we could kind of what-if scenarios all day, but does this exception apply to a person who keeps a weapon, say, by their nightstand and they're in bed next to the nightstand in the evening?
Sure, and I think that, you know, the scenario that you are using there with what you said, inside a nightstand, in a drawer, that would be debatable whether that would be within the immediate control. And genuinely, from our perspective, when we talk about immediate control, meaning within arm's length or on the individual and their person itself. So in a nightstand, I don't know, that's getting into that gray area a little bit. If it's in a drawer, in the nightstand, unsecured, there's a gray area there, and I don't know that based on the way the ordinance is written, whether that would be allowable. To me, I would more interpret in a drawer, in a nightstand, next to somebody's bed, probably as an unsecured firearm, would be my interpretation of that.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's it.
Harrison?
I just, well, first of all, thank you so much for looking into that and all the information you've provided to date. The question I have is, so in how many incidents approximately do we just simply don't have information of the origin where a firearm may have come into somebody's possession?
In what circumstances? And just for clarification, so I can make sure that I'm answering it correctly, when you talk about a firearm coming into someone's possession.
Yeah. In what cases do we have, like, just don't have the information, like where it came from, or that there was a like, because if we don't have information where it came from, then we can't attribute it to any certain cause and effect type of thing, like where they got it from, right? Is there is there an approximate number that you recall, or?
No, I don't know that there would be a number that I could come up with on that, because if you're talking about criminal activity, and I'll use a recent incident that took place where there was a firearm discharged within the city limits between two cars, and firearm was discharged. In that circumstance, the individual involved was a juvenile, and so based on California law, we can't interview that person without an attorney present, and no attorney is going to let the 17-year-old suspect answer those questions of where he got it from. So we don't know where they came from.
Right.
And in most cases, when you're talking about criminal incidents, we don't know where they came from. Now, if you want to switch into the scenarios where you're talking about an accidental discharge, negligent discharge, we have had those happen where someone may be cleaning a firearm in a garage, accidentally goes off, something like that. That has happened, and we've responded to those. That wouldn't be applicable in this case because the firearm would be on the person and within their possession, so it wouldn't have a requirement that it would be unloaded. When you talk about other situations where, you know, the scenarios that we don't want to talk about too often, but they do occur, where you do have a suicide in all of the ones that I researched and the ones that I found within this city, they were lawfully possessed by the individual involved.
Who used it? Okay, thank you.
Scott or Sridhar?
No questions. At this point, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing, waive the second reading, and read by title only. Ordinance next in line, amending Chapter 13. Is it Chapter 12 or Chapter 13, Mr. Attorney? Here it says 13, and up there it says 12.
12, yeah. It is in fact 12.
12, and Division B7 of Title B of the San Ramon Municipal Code requiring safe storage of firearms in residence.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye. 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 We don't need to.
Aye.
Oh, that's right. Good. Okay,
You'll need to vote and
now that I did it, I need to come to another one, right?
so open the public hearing.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing for this item. Do we have any cards for public comment?
Yes.
Take
Our
it.
first speaker is Mike Grant.
Okay, Mike. Have up to 3 minutes, please.
What these cards are here is, I'm a federal gun dealer, been for 47 years, and these are all hanging inside your gun dealerships. And when a customer comes in to buy a gun, they're reviewing all these things. And out of 10 of those, 5 of those state basically just exactly what you're talking about tonight. Securing your firearms, making sure they're out of the control of an 18-year-old person. So, anybody under 18. So as far as acts and things that are already in place you mentioned, under federal law, under the ATF, we've had the Youth Handgun Act available all the way back almost into the 70s. Then you have the California one that everybody, and this is issued to every person that buys a gun. Then you have this little card that said right in here that I give out, and this is by the state, and it says you may be fined or sent to prison if your gun is left unsecured and locked up from 18-year-olds. So you're covered as far as the law goes, as far as state and cities. All guns are sold with trigger locks automatically. If you take a gun and you take it and your neighbor wants to buy that gun and has to go to a federal dealer, California dealer, it will be sold again with a new trigger lock. You don't take one out of your drawer and take it down there. It has to have a new lock. So the state has made it mandatory to cover these types of things. The safe handling is another one we talk about all the time. There's ordinances out there that the state has penal codes on. And there's affidavits that they sign for your trigger, your guns, your safes. So again, they've signed an affidavit stating they have a gun and it's locked up. You have what's called an FSC test that you take. Anybody to buy a gun in the state of California has to take a test. There's 30 questions. 7 of those questions on that test pertain to just what you're talking about, that every individual is signing for. They sign an affidavit. So we have affidavit after affidavit after affidavit. So city ordinances are just going to be another one on top. And like the chief said, you're not going to be going to anybody's house. Under a Fourth Amendment right, that's pretty tough to go into. One of these signs is a suicide sign that we all talk about. He just brought up the suicides. Big letters. And everybody has to read these signs when they're in the dealership. Attorney General Bonta released June 30th, the crime report, right before the 4th of July. Crime is up 22% across the state, depending on the category. With that being said, when you tell somebody to lock their gun up in their house with crime up, I would almost bet that San Ramon, like Dublin, is 5 minutes out, unless it's shots fired, to get to you. You have 5 minutes. What are you going to do in that 5 minutes? You're going to tell the burglar, my gun is locked up down the hallway. My wife's going to say, hold on. He's going to get the gun, I'm getting the ammo, and then we can start the gunfight. This is absurd to do this. You're making people's lives unsafe by passing these laws and putting these ordinances in. We have enough laws, 225 gun laws on the books in California, 20,000 laws nationwide.
Okay, Mike, I need
Thank
to
you.
wrap you up. For clarification, when you said 18, you meant under 18, right?
18 and under is a minor.
Okay.
The guns have to be secured by the homeowner or the person that owns a gun. And they all sign for that. They all know that, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I'm going to give her some of these documents. If you guys want them,
Yes,
you can have them.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Bill Clarkson.
Mayor Clarkson, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you guys for having this conversation. I'll start off by saying when I was up there at the DS, we used to talk about street smarts. We talked about safe routes to school, not because we were having accidents. We were very proactive. In fact, we hired people to work for the city of San Ramon exclusively to work on safe routes to school, make a big presentation to us every year. We did Street Smarts. Many of you have gone to the Street Smart presentations. We spent a lot of time and energy, not because children ever have been really hurt, but because we were being proactive to make sure it would not happen. And I think this is what you're doing again tonight, and I really appreciate this conversation. As an example, I have weapons at home. They're all secure properly. Chief, they're all secure properly. But I went out, looked at the list, and bought another safe to keep them in. And the reason was this conversation prompted me that we as gun owners need to go an extra step to make sure that we secure our arms. And I think that's something that we want to do to set a great example. I think it's also a part of the fact that we're working as a community with people who are advocating for gun control. But I think the clear thing they need to hear is if gun owners are responsible, they need to be responsible in allowing us to have our weapons and not to make a bigger issue of that. So I want to thank you for this conversation. I appreciate the fact that you've opened this up and people will hear about it. I hope that people will follow this example that I set, making sure you go out and do it extra, get the safe. For folks, by the way, who want to have that gun next to their bed, there are boxes out there that you can have your gun secured in, that you can go over, have it quickly coded, and it will pop open for you. So for people who really want to have that, there are avenues for them to keep their weapons secured, safe, locked up, because you do not, the tragedy, you do not want somebody who's not authorized to get a weapon like that. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Lisa Blackwell?
Good evening, Mayor Hudson and San Ramon City Council members. I too want to thank you for this second hearing and a chance for us to have a conversation. I have lived in this area for 35 years and I'm a resident of Danville and was most recently on the Danville Town Council when I served as vice mayor. I currently serve on the Ed Foundation board that serves San Ramon schools and Danville and Alamo, and I am in support of the gun storage ordinance. When I was on the Danville Town Council, just like Mr. Clarkson, I recognized our main priority was the safety of our citizens. And we passed ordinances like you have on safety issues regarding marijuana, vaping, and the social host ordinance. We knew we couldn't 100% make those enforceable. We couldn't go door to door and check if parents were having parties with their kids. But we knew we sent a message by doing that. We knew we said we had safety as our highest priority. Our budget reflects safety as our highest priority, our safe roads, our safe bicycles, and of course, Street Smarts, which I also was going to talk about, which is a preventative education program that I was very involved with when I was on this town council. The gun safety storage ordinance is just another example of expanding safety standards and making a statement. The ordinance is already law for our households, for our children. In fact, our school district passed a requirement that you have to sign a statement that says you will have your guns locked up if you have children in your house. We're already doing that, so that's a big part of our population. The passage of this ordinance will simply close that loophole and provide clarity to all San Ramon residents. We now know that everyone needs to follow all the same rules, not just people who have parents or might have children in their house, which I don't know how you explain that rule because I'm a grandparent. I will have children in my house, but I'm not necessarily, I don't know. Am I required? I can't ever find that in the thing. Although the police chief said that you haven't had any thefts, we have had some thefts in the neighboring areas. Blackhawk and Alamo last year had some high-profile gun thefts, and the guns were not locked up, and I'm assuming those guns ended up illegally on the streets. I think that's why Contra Costa County passed this ordinance unanimously for that reason. I really appreciate, I watched the Zoom presentation, I really appreciated Vice Mayor Armstrong's suggestion we also tie education when we do this ordinance. I think that's really important. Just like our Street Smarts program, let's talk about prevention and let's talk about how this ordinance will have some teeth to it. So I appreciate that. I would love to do anything we can. I'd help with that if we can educate our community to make it a safer place for our kids. You've already stated that California has the strictest gun laws in the nation, but they work. I mean, we have 40% less gun deaths per capita than the rest of the nation. That's according to the Giffords Institute. Only 9 gun deaths per 100,000 people. And over 80% of our public, I'm thinking more in San Ramon, want safe gun laws. They want those. So I urge you to pass this, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for your
Next speaker, please.
work on the Danville Council.
What?
Thank you for your work on the Danville Council.
Thank you.
I understand everything that how hard it is.
Yes.
Brad Blackwell.
Hi, Brad Blackwell, also known as Lisa's husband. So Lisa mentioned that 80% of Americans, this is according to the APM Research Lab, a nonpartisan research group, support mandatory safe storage of guns. I would venture to guess that here in California, those percentages are higher. So this isn't a controversial issue. The question is, will it do any good? Well, first, does it provide any additional burden on gun owners? And the answer to that is responsible gun owners already lock up their guns. Our first speaker we heard said that. So where are you targeting this ordinance? It is to those that either are irresponsibly storing their guns, either knowingly or, as Vice Mayor Armstrong suggested, maybe unknowingly not properly storing their guns. An ordinance by San Ramon will do a lot to help boost the awareness and boost the fact that most people follow the law, and the law will now be that they have to safely lock their guns. So the question of enforceability comes up, and I will tell you that there are a lot of those. Seat belts on the freeway at 65 miles an hour is unenforceable unless a police officer pulls someone over for a different reason. Yet almost everyone wears a seatbelt these days. Now, before the law was passed, almost nobody wore seatbelts. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I stood on the seat and looking over the dashboard, telling my parents whether they could pass or not based on what was going on in the lines on the street. So, but today, because of the law, many lives are saved. Lisa mentioned the drinking, serving alcohol to minors in the backyard. Police officers aren't going to go back and check if that party has minors that are being served. Yet people now think twice, and minors are served less because of that ordinance. The safe gun storage gun laws will do the same thing. And lastly, you can't prove a negative. That's something that I've heard. Okay, how do we know that this is going to do any good or that we need it? Here's my response to that. People will follow the law. People will lock their guns up. And there are three areas where the risk is minimized. One is criminal activity, in which guns are stolen from people's houses and then used in a crime, either in this town, in this city, or somewhere else. Second is suicides. What's been found is that people, if there is a delay in an ability to get a weapon, they will think twice and suicides can be reduced. And third is a child that accidentally gets a hold of one. You can't prove the negative, but if there is one gun death in San Ramon in the near future as a result of criminal activity, suicide, or a child accidentally shooting themselves, what the five of you will know is that you did all you could to prevent those activities from taking place. If you don't act on this, you will always wonder. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Terry Keeney.
Terry?
Good evening, Mayor Hudson, council members, city staff. My name is Terry Caney. I am a 22-year, very involved resident of San Ramon and the father of two amazing kids in our community who went all through our schools. My dad grew up in a home with 10 brothers and sisters in the Bay Area. When he was about 5 years old, there was a gun in the house that was found by a child and was discharged by a child, and a child was injured. Fortunately, the child was not deceased. But this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. It's an issue that transcends political lines and speaks to the very heart of our community's safety. I imagine a world and a community where every gun owner takes responsibility not only for the ownership of their firearms, but also for their safe storage. This ordinance is not about limiting rights, it's about protecting lives, our children's lives, our neighbors' lives, our own lives. First and foremost, this ordinance promotes safety. It's about ensuring that firearms are securely stored away from the hands of children, adolescents, or individuals who may not have the training or responsibility to handle them safely. By mandating secure storage, we're reducing the risk of tragic accidents, preventing impulsive access to firearms in times of crisis, and ultimately saving lives. And by passing this ordinance, we're sending a message about what we stand for as a community. As you may know, the issue of gun violence, particularly escalating gun violence in and around our schools, is very near and dear to my heart. This ordinance is a step, albeit a small step, towards curbing gun violence. And it isn't it our obligation to do everything in our power to bring an end to the senseless tragedies that have dominated the headlines. It doesn't infringe upon the rights of responsible gun owners, but it rather emphasizes their crucial role in preventing unauthorized access to firearms. Proper storage means fewer opportunities for stolen guns to enter the wrong hands and to be used for criminal activities. It's a proactive measure that aids law enforcement efforts to keep our streets and our homes safer. I urge you to support this ordinance, to stand together as a community committed to the well-being of our families, our neighbors, our children. It's not about restrictions, it's about empowerment, empowering responsible gun ownership, protecting our loved ones, and creating a safer environment for everyone. Let's take this opportunity to set an example, to be leaders in ensuring that our firearms are kept secure, and to show our community what we do stand for. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Richard Adler.
Hello again, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I return again to speak on this subject as a 26-year resident of San Ramon. I believe that this safe storage of firearms ordinance should be enacted because it can save lives, especially those of children. Passing this ordinance will put San Ramon on record that the City Council and the citizens believe that gun safety is paramount. We would join a growing number of Bay Area cities who have adopted safe firearms storage ordinances. And as Vice Mayor Armstrong pointed out last week, the council should not automatically pass this ordinance because other cities have passed it, but because it's what is best for our city. And I believe this ordinance meets this test. There's an old legal formula which is used in negligence law, which applies here, I believe, where you balance the potential for injury if this ordinance is not passed with the potential burden to gun owners to keep their firearms locked up. I believe this ordinance passes and provides a reasonable balance between safety on one hand in the home and the right of gun owners to protect themselves within the home. With today's technology, lock boxes can be quickly opened with a code or by using the fingerprint technology. So gun owners still have access that they need. And as our police chief has said, this ordinance provides clarity for gun owners as to what the law requires for firearm storage. So in summary, a lockbox does a good job of balancing safety within the home with quick access by the gun owner. And it helps families prevent tragedies that we've read so much about that occurs not only in the home, but has the potential of occurring with the transportation of a gun to places outside the homes like schools or places where people congregate. And for these reasons, I urge you to pass this ordinance. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Steve D.
Howdy, everybody. How y'all doing? So many smiling faces here. Talk about locking up guns. Every gun owner does that, right? As the young man said, it comes with a case, cable locks, some people have safes, everything else. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have kids? Right? You have a stove, it's hot. You teach them, don't touch the stove, you're gonna burn yourself, okay? It's all about education. That's what it's all about. I know many gun owners that have been risen with guns as a kid, education is key, no matter what. So I understand what's the word I'm looking for? I understand the urge to maybe pass this law or ordinance or whatever, but education is key. As far as suicide goes, guns is just a tool. If someone wants to die, they're gonna die, no matter what. Whether it's opioid pills, or cutting a wrist, hanging. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next speaker, please.
There are no more public comments, but we did receive one written public comment, which is before you and in the red binder in the back of the room from Susie Ferris Inderkum.
Thank you. Then we'll close the public comment.
Oh, we have to have a motion to close it.
Or for the public hearing.
Yes,
I-
we do.
I move the.
I'll
I move the
second.
pers- To close the public comment.
Okay, let me take a vote. Do we have any further discussion on it? We have a motion and a second from Rubio. That's to close the public hearing, not on the ordinance. Looks like everybody wants to close the public hearing. Okay, discussion now. Anybody want to start it off?
I'll start off. I want to thank, Mr. Adler makes, to me, a very valid point about the balancing a burden and the possible outcome. And so the burden on the gun owner is minimal, but the action that is possibly avoided can be catastrophic. And so I think that and the other speakers made very compelling arguments. I took notes on our speakers, and prevention, safety is the highest priority. Boost awareness, the impact on family members. And we've seen it in the paper where, what was it? Was it a third grade student brought a gun to school and shot the teacher? Was it third grade or younger? In any case, doesn't matter. But obviously, that family didn't believe in safe storage. So I believe that, to me, it's very hard to argue against safe storage. I can't make up a valid reason against it, so I'll be supporting the ordinance.
Anyone else?
Do you want to go ahead?
All right, next, after you.
Ladies first.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. Everyone truly made some very compelling statements, and statements that I myself had researched and can verify. There's information from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health that stated that more than half of all gun owners, including 55% of gun owners with children in the home, do not practice safe storage, firearm storage. The reality is, as was mentioned by someone similar to seatbelts, we can't see everything. And it's really about encouraging certain behavior. And it's about being proactive, education as well, of course. And whether or not, I think the other question was, does it work? Another study showed that, in states, that most recently, a Harvard study showed that nearly 1/3 of youth suicides or accidental deaths could be prevented by requiring guns to be locked in when stored. So there's plenty of more, but I don't want to go too long on it because many of our speakers already illustrated that. And of course, it's not only keeping children safe and family safe, but it's, obviously making sure that guns don't get into the hands of other people who shouldn't have them. And of course, preventing suicide, which is one of the main reasons behind how it's used. And so I equally will be in support of this ordinance. Thank you.
Mark or Sridhar?
First of all, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate taking out your valuable time, joining us and giving the information about the current laws. Thanks for sharing all that, what the laws are, how we are protecting, and also about a good analogy about street smarts, why we do street smart, so that we can prevent and also about alcohol to minors, the importance, how it is played in preventing those actions, as well as about the suicides that goes on with the minors. You see, even with the CDC data, as we already have a lot of data, but in addition to that, during my research, I found out that CDC clearly mentions that 30% for young people ages from 10 to 24 from 1999 through 2022. This was a trend where there was no street laws whereas in comparison with the states with the street laws, there was only 1% increase. So that clearly shows why it is important to have an ordinance, to have a common sense law where we can bring a striking balance between a right and responsibility. This is all about bringing a common sense law within the community so that they will be responsible for what the right they are going to use for. So, and also all additional points, especially the one which Vice Mayor Armstrong mentioned in our previous one, where education is the key. So we need to make sure that should be important key items so that we can communicate this with the community about the importance of this ordinance, and taking into consideration of all other points my fellow council members just now mentioned. With that, I'm in support for this ordinance.
Is that a motion? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll add a couple comments. First of all, I really appreciate the additional information in the staff report, Chief. Some of the specifics that you clarified tonight even. I appreciate the city attorney's report as well. Thanks for the policy committee for reviewing this up front a while ago, and also want to thank all the members of the public who have chimed in, whether it's written comment or spoken comment on all sides of this issue. Before it was a little bit disconcerting that many of our public commenters were not from San Ramon, but we had a few more this evening that were San Ramon residents. I will still say that given the lack of kind of recorded statistics in San Ramon, I'm still left to figure out what problem in specific to San Ramon we're trying to fix. Obviously, as we've talked about tonight, there's no way to really conclude that the ordinance may have made a difference had we had the ordinance in effect previously. And there are some downsides, I think, to this ordinance. As you've heard, there are some pretty strong opinions on either side of the issue. So it's not necessarily a bringing the community together on an issue. This is divisive in some ways. We talked last time about how it's really not enforceable, very difficult to enforce this. It's more of an enhancement. And as I mentioned last time, I just my gut was telling me this is more of a feel-good kind of thing, jump on a bandwagon with other cities and that sort of thing. And I will defer to our chief, but I think it might put our cops in an uncomfortable position. Having said all that, responsible gun owners are just that. They're responsible. They know how to properly secure their weapons. They know how to prevent unauthorized access by anybody. Irresponsible gun owners will still be irresponsible. Criminals they don't care one way or the other. They're not going to change their behavior. But again, having said all that, I do see this ordinance as a preventive law. As was mentioned a couple times here, it's kind of like the Street Smarts program or Safe Routes to School. We've invested in these programs, and they're preventative programs to keep our kids safe. And so in that regard, we may never see a direct impact from this ordinance, but as I mentioned last time, for even a preventative law to be effective, and we've heard it a couple times tonight too, that education is going to be the key to changing behavior. So I think that process has already begun to change people's behavior. We heard from Mayor Clarkson tonight. He's already changed his behavior. I've talked to a couple other residents who, because of this discussion already, have already taken action to get an approved safe or approved safety device. So it's already having an impact just by talking about it and getting the word out there. But that's really not enough. I do think our residents want to comply with our laws. Often they don't know how to. So the real question is, how do we get the information out to the community? It's, just if you simply go to the Office of the Attorney General's firearms page, he's got a web page. He's got several tips on things to do. And I'm just going to kind of highlight, wrote down a couple of these things. There's the 6 basic gun safety rules that almost every gun owner could probably recite verbatim right now, and some additional safety points. There's information about guns and children, firearm owner responsibilities. Talks about different laws, child safety precautions, how to talk to children about guns, how to instill a mindset of safety and responsibility. It's got a link there, a listing for what are the safe storage and the California DOJ approved safety devices and storage devices. So it's not us just making this up. There's an approved list out there that people can go to. And it's got rules for kids. I mean, these are, pretty simple rules and easy to follow. It's like, stop, don't touch, leave the area, go tell an adult. Very simple stuff about how to communicate to children what to do if they come across a weapon. So having kind of put all that out there, I think tonight's ordinance is one way or the other, whichever way this thing goes, is still just a snapshot in time based on the information that's all been presented so far. Doesn't mean we can't change it over time if facts bear out the need to maybe change this ordinance. But assuming the ordinance passes tonight, either way, I'd like the chief to come back next year and provide an update on the impacts of the ordinance, if there are any impacts, if we can measure in some way the impacts of this ordinance. But I too, though hesitantly, intend to support this ordinance.
I'd like to make a comment about, you just asked the chief to make a presentation in a year about the impacts. I would also like to hear during that report what the city and in particular the police department has done to promote the education related to safe gun ownership, and whether that's a link on the police webpage that takes you to the the Attorney General's webpage, or we have our own. But education is part of it, and what will the city do over the next year to promote safe gun ownership, along with a report on the impact?
And I agree. I think probably the city manager can probably help come up with a plan too on communication if this ordinance passes, regardless if it passes. We should have some information out there about how to responsibly store firearms in the city.
So with that, I'm going to move the motion on adoption of ordinance amending Chapter 12 Firearms of Division B7 Public Peace, Morals and Welfare of Title B Regulations of San Ramon Municipal Code to require the safe storage of firearms in a residence.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Let's vote. Well, okay, that ends it. Oh, guys. Okay, what is it, 4-1? Okay, I'd say it passed. Next item, please. Let's go back to Assemblywoman Rebecca Bauer-Kahn. I believe she's here now. Yes.
That would be item number 6. So we have a legislative update and presentation of the 40th anniversary proclamation to the city by California State Assembly member Rebecca Bauer-Kahn.
No. Hi,
Hi, Rebecca.
Mayor and council members. It's good to be with you tonight, and thank you to the city staff for working with my team to make this happen. It's fun to be here to celebrate something. Thank you for your hard work keeping our communities safe. I know that for all of you, that's our shared priority, and the conversation that we just had highlights that. So I appreciate your focus on keeping every one of our residents safe every single day, and thank you to the chief who does that on our behalf. So I wanted to be here to honor the 40th anniversary of San Ramon, which is a fun anniversary to be celebrating. And also I'll be providing a brief legislative update. So my team and the legislature prepared this very beautiful resolution in honor of the 40th anniversary, which we'll be giving to you tonight. The one behind me, lovely, lovely. And let me just read part of it for you to honor the occasion. Whereas the city of San Ramon observed the 40th anniversary of its incorporation on July 1st, 2023, and in recognition of its progress and growth throughout the years, it's appropriate to extend to local residents the heartiest congratulations. And the resolution goes on to discuss the history of San Ramon from originally being the home to the Seonen and the Ohlone Costanoan indigenous people through the founding of the city and its growth, its burgeoning economy, it's building a city here to where it is and the incorporation in 1983. And what I'd like to celebrate is really where we are today. And so on July 1st, 1983, San Ramon officially incorporated as a city so its residents could manage its own services, resources, infrastructure, and development. And today, San Ramon is a thriving suburban city within the Bay Area, known for its excellent schools, business parks, and quality of life. It has also become a hub for technology companies and the office to your assembly member. Whereas the city of San Ramon boasts a diverse and growing population, and it has evolved into one of California's most attractive and distinguished communities while remaining ever mindful of its rich history. So therefore be it resolved that I, the assembly member, congratulates the people of the city of San Ramon as they celebrate this anniversary of its incorporation, points with immense pride to the many opportunities provided to the individuals fortunate enough to call San Ramon home, and I extend the best wishes for its continued growth and prosperities for the years to come. Thank you.
Ask Vice Mayor, it takes me too long to look at.
Thank you. And now for a brief legislative update. I want to start by thanking all of you. I know, I have the privilege of representing the 500,000 people in Assembly District 16, and we share a good portion of those constituents. And it really is through the work of the council members, the city manager, the city staff, in representing and understanding the needs of this community that I, as a assembly member, but also my staff, are able to work every day in Sacramento on behalf of the people who live here in San Ramon. So I want to thank you for your ongoing partnership. It is really meaningful and helpful to me as I serve this community. One of the things that I think is most important that we do at the state is to bring dollars down to the community. I know you agree with me on that. So I was incredibly happy to partner with the San Ramon Police Department and support and secure the $5.6 million to combat organized retail theft, which is obviously critically important at this moment in time. And the governor and the legislature have been working to figure out how we can continue to support that because our businesses need it, as we know. We're seeing it throughout communities, and small business owners particularly cannot withstand the thefts that are happening, and so they're shuttering their doors in our economy, and the thriving city center that I get to enjoy for lunch every day needs our help. And so I want to thank the city and the police department for seeking those funds. It takes an application for those to come down, and the governor for his partnership in ensuring those funds were available. Not every city I represent that has a thriving commercial district was able to secure those funds. So hopefully we'll be able to get more next year and re-up cities like San Ramon and support cities like Walnut Creek. We continue to support the community's open space and education initiatives. We were able to fund a new education center at Mitchell Canyon on Mount Diablo. Mount Diablo is obviously such a gem here in our community, and we want our kids to be able to experience the beauty of nature and get out there and love our environment as much as we do. So that was an exciting addition to the state park. We're continuing to look at how we can work on water in the community. That is a shared resource that we work work hard to make sure everyone has access to. I know many of us don't think when we turn on our faucet how lucky we are to have clean drinking water, but it does take the water board, the legislature, the city councils, and everyone to work together to ensure that happens. So part of what has happened in our backyard is that Pleasanton had to close down their wells because of PFAS contamination. That puts burdens on Zone 7, which puts burden on other water districts. So we're working to clean that up and ensure everyone has access to clean, healthy drinking water. So again, I really appreciate your involvement. We continue to want to hear from you on what bills are affecting the community, how they're affecting the community, how I can best represent the interests of the city, and both on the budget side and also on the legislative side. And I want to thank you because the City of San Ramon and the Tri-Valley cities collectively are very good at helping me understand how legislation impacts you, your cities, and your communities, and that really does make me a better legislator. We continue to work on strengthening California's small businesses. I know we feel like we're post-pandemic, but not all of our businesses feel like they're post-pandemic yet. They are still struggling to recover from what was an incredibly hard couple years, and we continue to focus on ensuring that GoBiz and our departments in Sacramento are supporting them with the resources they need to thrive. I mentioned water. Last week, I became the chair of the Privacy Committee. That is my new post in the legislature. So I will be overseeing both the privacy initiatives, which is all technology initiatives, and consumer protection, which I'm really excited about. Some of my favorite bills in the legislature are consumer protection bills. It's not things people think about, but they actually are the things that affect our everyday lives. Last year, we moved a bill focused on those horrible auto renewals. That, you know, you sign up and they just renew and renew and renew. And I just saw an article in the New York Times about how much the average person is paying without even realizing it in auto renewals. And so we passed a law in California that you have to be notified before they process that and have the opportunity to opt out before your auto renewal is processed, which I hope will save Californians some pain and suffering as it relates to these subscription services that are just ubiquitous in our lives. So that's the kind of legislation I'll be overseeing, as well as all legislation focused on artificial intelligence, which is being built in our own backyard here in the Tri-Valley. It's a huge part of our economy. We're seeing through the office space that's being leased and built out that it is the next wave of the California tech boom, will be the artificial intelligence businesses that are coming to California. And that will be part of the jobs that support our community. So innovation is critical. But we also are hearing from our communities that they want us to regulate it. They want to make sure that it's safe, that our kids are safe. There are many ways in which we failed our kids in the advent of the internet, and we're seeing the fallout from that, and we don't want the same thing to happen with artificial intelligence. And so we will try to balance both innovation and regulation, which I truly believe we can achieve. We're still incredibly focused on transportation. There was about a year there where nobody was talking to me about the traffic. It's back, and people are talking to me about the traffic again. And the 680 corridor is obviously a huge part of that. So we're continuing to focus on building Valley Link to get people off of the corridor, the 580 corridor, which will obviously bleed into the 680 corridor if people can get on BART instead of be on the road, using Valley Link to move from the San Joaquin Valley directly to BART. We also continue to work with the Contra Costa Transportation Commission to figure out how we can move people better and more efficiently here on the 680 corridor, and continue to push forward on bus on shoulder, which we think is a key element of the future of which. And I see the mayor shaking his head, who's been a big transportation advocate his whole career. And I really think that is a huge part of the future here in the 680. So we continue to be focused on that and working with the Highway Patrol to get them on board, because they have really been, as you know, Mayor, one of our stumbling blocks in that effort. And so I just really want to close by telling you and all of our constituents who are here and watching online that we are here to serve the constituents. That's the job, that's the privilege I have every day. One of the things people don't know, and so I say it whenever I have the opportunity, is that we can help people with state agencies. So if you or one of your constituents needs help with the Franchise Tax Board, with unemployment insurance, that was one of the things we were really able to, and people did start to learn during the pandemic, was if you're not able to get your unemployment insurance, that is a right, that is yours. You have paid into it, you deserve it. If the state is stopping you from getting it, call us. We can actually help that happen. The DMV, we can help you with the DMV. Who knew that? So please call us. We want to support you. We want to make the state work better for everyone living in our beautiful community. So call us, look us up on social media, and we're here to support you. Thank you, council members.
So if we go to lunch tomorrow at City Center, you'll be on the rink?
Well, I don't know if I'll be on the rink there. I did take my kids ice skating last weekend, and they got a big kick out of seeing me on the rink. So
Yeah. Thank you very much for your support on Valley Link and Innovate 680. Just an example, in Virginia on Interstate 66, they have bus on shoulder. And so if there's an example that's needed to help the California Highway Patrol figure it out, Interstate 66, which is out towards Vienna, Virginia, has bus on shoulder.
Yeah, it's not an innovative idea.
Minnesota's had it for years.
And so I don't quite understand. There are elements of technology you need to put in place so that you don't have collisions at the end of ramps, but it's nothing we can't overcome.
Exactly. And it's the cheapest, I mean, it really is one of the cheapest way to move people efficiently.
Well,
trains are expensive.
It makes people more confident that their bus will meet the schedule to get to their destination. Right now, if they're stuck in traffic with everybody else, they go, why bother? One I had read an awful lot of bad press about the unemployment and EDD. And is the state legislature doing any hearings on the problems and how to correct them? Because they had fraud on a huge scale. And then they denied claims, legitimate claims on a huge scale. So we're spending money where we shouldn't, and we're withholding money where we shouldn't.
It was amazing because we were getting the calls. Eventually, people realized we could help people who had legitimate claims to unemployment. We were getting hundreds of calls. And I was thinking, and then you're reading about the people who are making false claims that are getting their check. I was like, well, why can't my constituents who actually deserve money get their money? This seems so backwards. And the system has improved. I wouldn't say to the extent that we need it to, but we continue to work on pushing forward on the state's technology. I mean, the state, we are the world's technology leaders here in California. And our technology was so out of date that when the pandemic hit, you couldn't change your password online on the EDD website. If you had gotten unemployment years before and now we're entitled to it again and had forgotten your password, you had to send a letter in. That's how outdated our technology was. And so we pushed, and to your point, we held numerous hearings. We had numerous meetings. They replaced the head of EDD, although now she's a federal employee, which is confusing to me. But we replaced the head of EDD. They really pushed hard to improve things. There is more room to grow. Our current EDD problem is that it's underfunded and we have real problems if people were to put the same demands on it. So that's something that many of us are focused on, is ensuring that we are where we need to be, because as I said, people pay in. This is an entitlement, and we need to make sure that it's solvent for people when they need it. And so, yes, but it isn't just EDD, I will say. We are pushing on the technology across agencies. You know, as I was the former chair of Water Parks and Wildlife, and I said, I think the only place that California constituents directly engage with their state government and actually feel good about us is in the state parks. Let's change that. Let's make it the state parks and the DMV and other places. Now that's a laudable goal, but it's one we need to really try to achieve.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yep, thanks for the updates, and especially thanks about 5.6 million that you worked and got us, which is going to be a great help for us. I know you are a big supporter of environmental, so just wanted to touch base. Do you have any highlights about environmental climate change updates?
Yes, I mean, it continues to be the thing that keeps me up at night. I know, like many folks, that, you know, our climate is changing rapidly. We are blessed to have partners in our backyard at the Lawrence Livermore Lab that have really done incredible work in helping us understand how we can face the climate crisis in the smartest possible ways. What has been hard is that not everyone in Sacramento is willing to listen to the recommendations of the world's best scientists. And so there are ways we need to push harder. And one of the things they've really focused on is carbon capture. There's no way for us to achieve our climate goals without carbon capture. And people don't like it because it tells you that we're not going to be 100% pure, but the reality is we're not. And right, so we can close our eyes and pretend we're going to have no emissions, or we can say, okay, we're going to do everything we can to drive down emissions, and we're going to capture those that still are around. You know, one of the things that our refineries are doing in the Martinez area is shifting from making gasoline to clean airplane fuel that burns significantly 70% cleaner than traditional airplane fuel. To get airplanes to decarbonize, I don't know when that's probably not in my lifetime, maybe eventually. So even where we're moving to fully clean cars, but there's still sources of emissions that will be out there. And we need to be focused on, okay, so that's still going to be happening. How do we capture that? And that has been really hard. And much like what we talk about in our housing problems is that it's really hard to build things in California. You know, I was with a carbon capture company who said it takes 10 years to get those permits. So I do it in Colorado instead of California. So we're really focused on where there are climate solutions. How do we improve the process to make those happen quickly because we need it? And carbon capture is a huge piece of that. And then continuing to focus on how we invest the dollars that are coming down from the federal government. It's an exciting opportunity. California is one of the hydrogen hubs in the country, which means great opportunity for us to be leading the way on hydrogen as a fuel of the future. We are really optimistic that that is what's going to build the Valley Link hydrogen fueling station, is that money coming down from the federal government. It will be the first in the state 100% green hydrogen fueling station that will fuel not only the train itself, but all the buses in the Stockton area. And so continuing to push on these and use the dollars that we now have at our disposal, thanks to the actions at the federal level, to really change California for the better as it relates to energy and efficiency and fuel and the like, and hopefully get to the goals we need to be at. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more question.
Yeah.
Regarding the homeless, so that's becoming one of the big challenge across the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Along with the housing crisis, right? So just want to hear from you about any actions on that side of homeless, how you want to work on that.
So we have spent a lot of money trying to solve the homeless crisis, and we're not seeing the return on that investment. You all agree? Great. We all are on the same page about that. I would say what is interesting is the only place in the state where we are is Orange County. Orange County revolutionized the way they do homeless services, and we're seeing a rapid decline in their homeless population. And so this year we actually saw that, and we said, okay, come Orange County, we want to learn from you. What are you doing nobody else is doing? Some of the things are super simple. One of the things they did was they put everyone who served homeless individuals into an open work environment together, because they were all working in silos. They said, we're just gonna put you in a room, and you're gonna have to realize you're all serving the same people independently and duplicating efforts. How do you work together? And so sometimes it's not even an expensive thing that changes the way we serve homeless people. I carried a bill this year that didn't make it because of cost, that would have allowed for deeper communication around the people that we serve most. So it's a very small percentage of people who we treat constantly in our emergency rooms and our public safety systems, who are really, costing a lot of dollars and have really poor outcomes. And so we were trying to get to pay for counties to have the systems to communicate, so that you know who are those people who are in each of these systems frequently. And we couldn't do it this year because of budget limitations, but that's the kind of thing we're looking at, is how do we make sure the money we're spending is being used efficiently and getting the outcomes we need? And where we're seeing good results, let's duplicate that throughout the state instead of continuing to just pour money out there and hope for the best. And so where we've been really focused at the state level is oversight, having oversight hearings, talking about what's working, looking at what's not, and putting more restrictions. You'll see on the ballot, we just put on the ballot an initiative that will change the way we fund Mental Health Services Act, including a large portion of that will be housing first. But we got a lot of pushback from the counties because there's a lot of oversight and strings attached to those dollars now, because we think we need to be seeing better results.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to also just chime in. Thank you for your assistance with the organized retail theft grant. That was super. Anything we can do to help our, retail centers or small businesses. Thanks for your work, with small businesses and economic development. One other thing is you see right out here, you've seen it all a lot. We have kind of an intersection of kind of open space trails and transportation with the construction of the bridge across Bollinger Canyon Road, Iron Horse Trail Bridge. We're really excited about that. It's coming along. We're starting to see things, and we're already starting to move forward with taking a look at how we're going to do something similar. Maybe not to the same scale, but do the same thing over at Crow Canyon and Iron Horse Trail. And so I'm sure we'll be in communication with your office on that going into the future. It certainly took a while, 10 plus, maybe 15 years to kind of get it all together for this current bridge here at Bollinger. Hopefully we can shorten that time frame and secure all the funding, do all the things we need to do to get the design ready here quickly, and then move forward and we get it done at Crow Canyon. But we may be in contact with your office on that. It'll be an exciting new development for the city going into the future.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, and we do see that path not only as, a recreation path, but also an active transportation path. People use it to get to BART. So it is a really important corridor. It was Mayor Hudson and I worked on one of my first bills was the design builds bill that I did for that bridge. So it's exciting to see it happening. So yeah, I think it's critically important. And actually I was just on with MTC today. Not that I know whether I'm going to support this or not, but they're looking at putting a transportation ballot measure on the ballot in 2026. Mayor Hudson, you should have seen what they were proposing. A lot of taxes. But I did hit the point home that one of the things that we need is dollars for things like this. We have had a hard time getting dollars into our communities for these types of important community improvements. So to the extent that we see that come to pass, I think it's critical that we ensure those dollars are available.
We've been very fortunate with Tri-Valley going back to DC.
Yeah.
And, good gift to Gap.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, we don't have Senator Feinstein there anymore and some others, so it's going to be a lot tougher.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one thing before I forgot on the bus on shoulder. It's a great idea, but the reason it died necessarily wasn't just the CHP. It was actually more the CHP wives. With CHPs getting hit on that shoulder. So I just say tread carefully, make sure you touch that base if you start down that road, because they were formidable, very formidable.
Oh, interesting. And we obviously want our CHP to be safe. There's no question about that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone
Thank
else?
you. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for your presentation and giving us a legislative update of the work you've been doing, as well as the plaque that you brought for us, the resolution. I also wanted to ask, because I know you've worked on a lot of water bills, and there was encountered a lot of barriers there. Would you be able to please expound on that? What's keeping us back from making progress on that front?
Yeah, some of it's denial. So, so when I became water chair, one of the first things I did, I was water chair for 2 years, was ask scientists at Lawrence Berkeley Lab who specialize in California's water to give me a briefing. And one of the things that I remember sitting on that call, and they said, and this was before last year when we had all of these atmospheric rivers, and they said, the future is drought for many years and then years of atmospheric rivers. And then look, that's what came to pass. And on the call, I remember thinking that I was happy there was going to be flooding because at least there would be water because the water situation was so dire. But now we saw how many lives and businesses were lost in that. I wish it was like my childhood when we just had more steady rain. But one of the things they told me was that in 25 years, the prediction is there will be no more snow in the Sierras. As anyone who understands California water knows, our biggest reservoir is the snowmelt out of the Sierras. So when that disappears, there will still be rain, they say, but it won't be snow, won't be cold enough for it to be snow. And so we have to rethink all of our water in California and how we store it and how we move it and how we plan it. That's a really large undertaking. So the first step of that is everyone getting on board with, we've got a real problem. 25 years isn't very long when you talk about building water infrastructure. You said 15 years on a bridge over the street, right? So, so we got to start having that conversation today. The problem is it's not today's problem, right? So people don't want to face what is in the future. And my fear is by the time we're there, we're going to be in trouble. And so I really started to have those conversations and push what were very difficult conversations that people didn't want to have. And for the first time in Sacramento, we were having those conversations about how we manage water. What does that mean? Part of it was after the years of drought, people were having curtailments that were making them not able to grow the produce they grow because everyone was curtailed so deeply. So what I said is if we manage our water better and we do better with our aquifers and we store more in good years, maybe you don't have to curtail as much, right? And you have more water for us to pull up and to use, and let's think creatively. But everyone really wants the status quo. That's the truth. And the truth is the status quo isn't sticking around for long. So we got to start thinking about the future. And so I'm going to continue to force those conversations because I think it's critically important we start thinking about that infrastructure. We just saw the governor sign, we were able to move in June with the governor a series of infrastructure bills that allow us to build infrastructure faster. And a lot of that was water infrastructure. The vast majority of that will be water infrastructure. And he just signed a CEQA streamlining authorization, I think is what it was, for the Sites Reservoir, which is obviously a piece of that. But another huge, I mean, we talk a lot about our above ground reservoirs, which are important. I don't want to minimize that. We've got one in our backyard that's being built up that's really critical. But we need to talk more about our groundwater, our good groundwater management, and getting more into the ground when we have it. And part of the key of that is that what we have done in California, and this is what we saw with a lot of the flooding, is we've built these pathways for the water and these levees and said, water, go here. And California has the best soil in the world for capturing water, but we're not letting it go there, right? We're moving it down these tunnels. And so what we've started to do in the Central Valley, working with the local communities, is increase the floodplains. Say, let's take that land back. Let's increase the floodplains. Let's let the water go into the ground. Let's either grow things there that are amenable, or we just open to state park. So that land is now state park land, and it's going to allow the water to seep into the ground to refill the aquifers when it is wet. Like last year, I was there right after the flooding, and it was incredible. It was entirely flooded. I was on a boat to go see it, and all of that water over time went into the ground. So we're trying to create a plan to do more of that floodplain expansion, because it really will help us store underground water in a meaningful way, while at the same time ensuring we're not overdrafting those aquifers. And part of what you've seen in the press potentially is a lot of the farms these days are being bought up by big commercial farmers who don't care about the community around them. They don't care about the small farmers and whether they get their share of water. And we've seen that lately it's been the carrot farmers in certain parts of the state. And so we're trying to force through our State Groundwater Management Act cooperation, and saying to people, come together as a community. That's all done on the local level. They need to come up with a plan. How do you keep the aquifer recharged while sharing this water? And that has been hard because of these large, mostly those carrot growers are owned by a Chinese entity. They're not an entity that cares about California or Californians. So that's hard, right? And so we do need to get our local small farmers to the table, because we care about them and we want them to be able to do business. And we are part of the breadbasket of the country. And what has happened in Ukraine has taught us anything, it's that is critical to our national security. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Assemblywoman,
Thank
for coming out
you.
tonight.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Next item, please.
We have item 9, new business. Item 9.1, public hearing, draft general plan 2040 update, GPA 2023-0002, rezone RZ 2023-0002, pre-zone PZ 2023-0001, specific plan amendment SP 2023-0001, and environmental review ENVR 2023-0003. We have a staff report by Cindy Yee, our senior planner.
All right. Hello and good evening. It's my pleasure to be here in front of the City Council this evening for our third City Council meeting on the project. As you're well aware, we've had quite an extensive process leading up to this point. This evening, we're prepared with ordinances for you to introduce this evening, to conduct the public hearing and provide additional feedback on the project, and then, if appropriate, set December 12th City Council meeting for certification of the General Plan EIR, adoption of the 3 ordinances, and adoption of the General Plan 2040 update. And so just a brief background. We've been working on this project since 2021. The city initiated the general plan update back in July 21 and have had quite a extensive review of the project that's led to this evening. In May of this year, we released the draft general plan for public review. In August of this year, we released the draft environmental impact report for public comment. That final environmental impact report has been completed and released for public review earlier this month. And then Planning Commission adopted 2 resolutions recommending the City Council certify the general plan EIR, as well as adopt the 2040 update that's in front of you this evening. And so a couple of items to note regarding changes or project updates since the last council hearing on October 3rd. There was some discussion that had on October 3rd related to the West Side Specific Plan and the Gelderman properties. At that October 3rd meeting, the Planning Commission and City Council directed staff to amend the land use element policies and to add some draft language regarding the need to update or sunset the West Side Specific Plan. So on November 7th, the Planning Commission, as part of the resolution, did recommend that the City Council maintain the existing hillside residential designation on the Gelderman properties and then defer consideration of amending their land use designations until the city conducts a comprehensive evaluation of the West Side Plan. So the land use will stay the same as it currently is from the 2035 general plan. No changes would be made to those properties until we've had a more comprehensive update and review of that West Side Plan. And so errata changes have been made to figure 4-3, and then any corresponding text and figures related to that general plan would be reflected in the final document to maintain the hillside residential designation. And then the second project update is related to the Downtown Mixed Use South zoning district. In our past public hearings, we've talked about an alternative land use to the formerly Chevron Office Park, as well as portions of Bishop Ranch 1. The recommendation had been to evaluate changing it from an office land use designation to a downtown mixed use south designation, and at the same time replacing the mixed use designation on 4 shopping centers and replacing that with a retail shopping designation. And so to implement that change, we have reviewed it as part of the environmental impact report. There are edits that have been proposed as part of your general plan. You'll see those in your errata table, as well as in the zoning ordinance, and then associated figures that would implement the DMU South designation and zoning district. And then on October 3rd, we did touch on the fact that the EIR had been released and we were still in our public comment period, but the programmatic draft EIR has been completed. The EIR focuses on reasonably foreseeable direct and indirect physical environmental impacts that could result in the update to the general plan. And the intent of CEQA, just as a reminder, is not to eliminate all environmental impacts, but to allow for informed decision-making based on the public review process and substantial technical study of a project's potential environmental impacts. And so that document made findings on that all proposed project mitigation measures result in a less than significant impact in all environmental issues except for transportation due to an increase in vehicle miles traveled as part of the general plan update. It also identified alternatives that were evaluated and considered. And as part of that review, the EIR Alternative 2, which is the change to the DMU South and the retail shopping, as I mentioned earlier, was determined to be the environmentally superior alternative. And then as part of the environmental impact report, there's a response to comments document that was prepared to address any issues and concerns raised during the EIR public review process and provides the basis for determination by the Planning Commission and City Council. The final EIR is comprised of the draft EIR, the response to comments document, as well as a mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And it's been prepared and incorporated in as an exhibit to the EIR resolution. There's also included as part of the final EIR is a statement of overriding considerations. And those are based on all of the findings of the record as a whole, determining that the benefits of the project outweigh the specific environmental impacts, in particular, the significant and unavoidable impact related to vehicle miles traveled. So this evening, we have 3 ordinances that are included as part of your packet. In addition to the City Council's consideration of the draft resolutions, adopting the EIR and the general plan update, we also need 3 ordinances to ensure consistency and to implement the general plan. The first ordinance is related to the repealing of the North Camino Ramon specific plan and the zoning regulations related to the North Camino Ramon plan. as well as making amendments to the zoning ordinance. So that all of the changes in the zoning ordinance will be, will replace the North Camino Road specific plan. The second ordinance is related to the San Ramon Village specific plan. There will be amendments made to that document, development standards, as well as zoning regulations for the plan area. And those changes primarily are related to the housing element changes that were made as part of the housing element direction. And then the last ordinance is related to the city's zoning map that establishes a pre-zone for a small parcel off of Deerwood Road that's currently an unincorporated portion of the city, within the city limits. And so just a correction being made to the zoning map that would allow for the pre-zone that will allow for the eventual annexation of the unincorporated island to the city. I should note that we have the 3 ordinances as well as the 2 resolutions. I did want to note that there was a clerical error on attachment A, Exhibit 2. It's on page 122 and 154. On this page, it inadvertently lists a last name as included as part of a commenter's comments. And so we're just striking out the last name as part of the final resolution that you'll see potentially on December 12th. So just wanted to make that note. And then next steps, again, if appropriate, we would recommend setting December 12th City Council meeting for certification of the EIR, adoption of the 3 ordinances, as well as adoption of the general plan update. So with that, that wraps up my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that you have.
Okay, any questions of staff before we get to a motion to open a public hearing?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Couple questions. Let me start with the parks element. You know, our current 2022 ratio of parkland to residents, I saw was 4.72 acres per 1,000 residents within a half mile. The standard, or maybe what you're now calling the guideline, is 6.5 acres per 1,000 residents. And it looks like with the estimated build-out population of 110,089, it would require 715 acres per 1,000 people. But it build out the estimates only for 670, or in other words, 6.0 acres per 1,000. So I guess why are we stopping short of that guideline at 6.0 and not kind of trying to get to the 6.5 per 1,000 residents?
So should probably just provide just some quick background on what the numbers currently are and then how we got to the new update. The current acreage per 1,000, the 4.2, is based on today's current population, and then the estimate of how many acres are going to be built through our planning period through 2040 is estimated to be closer to 6 acres per 1,000. And we have the ability to achieve, based on where we anticipate future park acreage to be identified, that we can achieve at a minimum the 6 acres per 1,000 per resident. We do have a guideline that still identifies that we'd like to achieve 6.5. And so in the growth management element, we still identify a goal of achieving 6.5 acres. But based on the constraints that we have in terms of our area in the general plan, we currently only have capacity for identifying 6 acres per 1,000. With future projects that get constructed in the city, our goal is that as part of all of those projects, we can continue to identify additional acreage that will get us closer to the 6.5 acres. And so we continue to maintain that as our guide for 2040. But specifically as far as how much we expect to achieve based on the number of units and the number of people that are going to be added to the city by 2040, we can meet that 6.0, but we're going to strive to achieve 6.5.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, just going from 4.72 to 6.0 that's good. That's a good thing. The next comment and question, I guess, is, I initially glossed over the reference up front in the staff report that said the DMU South was going to be covered in the errata section. I was looking all over for it. Finally found it way back at the end. Looks like there's a new policy in there too, and some details on development standards, but is there enough detail in there, enough specificity to allow Sunset and that whole project to go forward for the orchards in the near future without any significant delay?
I would say that how the policy is written, along with the image that's included, provides enough direction as far as the parameters of how that project is going to, or that zoning district will look like, and all the different minimums and maximums that are set within that policy, along with the figure provides the guidance for how that area would be developed. And so that provides a developer an opportunity to build based on the parameters that are set in the policy, and would allow the city, if a project were to come in and look like the image and met the bullets within that policy, that we would be able to move forward with the review process for a project.
Okay. All right. The third thing, I recall in our last joint session, and you addressed it already a little bit here, but we discussed the possibility of sunsetting the West Side specific plan. And I see that's also covered in a new policy that to evaluate the need to update or sunset that plan. Is there kind of an expected timeline where that evaluation will take place? I mean, obviously we got to approve the plan, but how much of a priority is that to get moving on the consideration of either an update or a sunset of the West Side plan?
So I would expect that in this next year, you can expect to see things like the climate action plan, update the objective development standards that we've been talking about, zoning ordinance update that would be related to those objective standards. So those are some of the priority documents that we're working on as far as long-range planning. I would kind of look to the council if you have some goal setting, potentially if you want to move that ahead or behind other projects, that we could certainly consider that. But it will be in our general plan policy, and on an annual basis, we do evaluate the implementation of the general plan. And so that is something that we'll include as part of, can we include it as part of our 2024 work? And if there's some specific direction that you'd like to give us, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, the final question is really, you probably just answered it as well, but it was really about the timeline to finish up with the zoning ordinance or new objective design standards, allowable uses, that sort of thing. And in particular, the whole DMU South objective design standards. But I'll even throw in the climate action plan, but are we coming up on a timing process to get this all moving?
Yeah, the climate action plan and the objective standards are kind of our priorities, and we consider those in partnership with this general plan update. Those are things that will need to help continue guide development in the city, and also, meet goals that we'll be setting for our climate action plan. And so those are some of the priority documents that we know we're expecting this to begin in the early part of next year.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Cindy.
I have just a follow-up question. So something that crossed my mind, so looking at the projections, right, and what the demand may be on our resources and all of those things that we have, right? I noticed that it was persons per household was consistently held at 2.92 across all those years, right? Considering that the cost of living is going up and it's becoming increasingly harder for one person to, oftentimes we're seeing more and more multiple families living in one household to just make ends meet. Is it possible is there a margin of error that was maybe considered in there where it could be larger than that per household?
So I would say we rely on the projections of persons per household from the Department of Finance. And each year, Department of Finance provides us with how many units have been constructed that year, how many additional people have been added. And on an annual basis, they provide us with a persons per household. And it's held pretty steady over the last 5 years, I would say, in that 2.87 to 2.92 range. Surprisingly, that persons per household actually was lower the last time I saw it in the most recent DOF information that was released, I think in May of this year. And so I think some of that has to do with maybe some of the real estate market right now, and kind of maybe some reduction in a lot of turnover in units that are happening right now. But that number has held steady, pretty steady within that 2.8 to 2.9 range over the last 5 years. And there's often changes in trends, but it doesn't change as drastically as we would expect that would make these models any different than what we project.
Okay. And do you think in any way that might be like the fact that it's kind of holding steady? Do you think that that may have anything to do perhaps with the type of housing that we have more of? I mean, clearly we have more higher density housing right now than we did before. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
Most certainly, there is less persons per household in smaller units and rental type of units than there are in single-family homes. And we are, as far as our future development has been at a higher density per acreage. And so there are smaller units that are being constructed. And so potentially that plays into the steadiness of the persons per household.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else, or do we get a motion to open the public hearing?
I have, just for questions, Rick, just for my understanding, just to make sure, I want to piggyback on Vice Mayor Armstrong's question regarding this 6.0 acre per thousand. Is that includes parks and open space, or is it just only the parks?
It's just considered parks, so recreation and park.
Not our open spaces yet?
It does not, no.
Oh, okay. So that's a significant increase, right? So that's amazing, 6.0. I have one more comment regarding the emergency preparedness. There is a point on packet page 384, which says that we need to disseminate information to community and business leaders and residents regarding all aspects of emergency and disaster preparedness. So I really want to see that information on our website, city website, so we can share with the community members so they understand how we are going to be prepared, ready for these emergency events. But thanks for all the updates that are done. That's it.
If there's nothing else, can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll move we open the public hearing and introduce 3 ordinances, waive the readings, and read all 3 ordinances by title only. So, ordinance next in line, repealing North Camino Ramon specific plan development standards and zoning regulations for the plan area and amending the zoning map and zoning ordinance implementing the San Ramon General Plan 2040 plan project, and ordinance next in line amending the San Ramon Village specific plan development standards and zoning regulations for the planning area implementing the San Ramon General Plan 2040 project, and ordinance next in line amending the zoning map related to an approximately 0.13 plus acre area within the Deerwood Road unincorporated island.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those, well, we got to vote, right?
Yep.
Okay. Looks like we want to open the public hearing. Thank you, Cindy. Okay, public comment is open. Do we have any cards?
We have no speaker cards. We did receive 3 written comments, which are before you and in the red binder in the back of the room, from Ariel Strauss, Susie Ferris Inderkum, and Jim Blickenstaff.
Very good, thank you. Then we have closed the public comment.
Nope.
I move the ordinance.
I move we close the public hearing. We have to,
Right.
I second that.
Any further discussion? Motion to close? All those in favor, get on up here, yes. It looks like a unanimous to close.
All right, then any further discussion now? I
Any
guess?
further discussion?
All right, then I will move, we set December 12th, 2023 meeting for certification of the San Ramon General Plan 2040 final EIR and the adoption of the 3 ordinances as mentioned prior, and adoption of the San Ramon General Plan 2040 update.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor, vote. All those not, vote. Thanks for coming out tonight, Lauren. Always good to see you. I'd say we've set the date for the 12th of this. 23rd. Okay, next item, please.
The next item is 9.2, election of the vice mayor for the city of San Ramon.
Okay. I'll do the staff report on that. We rotate our vice mayors. I pretty much set up when I think is the timing on it. I put the vice mayor and the next vice mayor on the finance committee. And so I think that would make Scott Perkins our next vice mayor, unless somebody else thinks I can't add. Does anyone else wish to make a nomination? Or I'd nominate Scott Perkins to be the next vice mayor.
Yeah, I was going to do the same, nominate.
Okay,
I'm sorry?
We'll take Mark's nomination.
Oh, no, I was also going to nominate Councilmember Perkins. I just went back and I looked at kind of who was the vice mayor and what years and kind of what happened in certain years that caused a rotation and things like that. And of course, anytime we have an election, things get a little bit flip-flopped around. 2020 is an example when you were elected as mayor. And I was appointed to go into District 2, and you got elected for District 3, and then we had same thing. We had I was kind of re-elected for District 2. Councilmember Rubio last year was elected to District 4. So these things disrupt a little bit of what might be just a normal seniority rotation, but we got new people. So in my analysis is then after my term this year as vice mayor, that it would again be Councilmember Perkins for 2024, just based on that seniority next in turn.
So is that a motion and a second?
Yes.
So I guess
We
I
need
will.
to do this up here. Okay.
I will move Councilmember Perkins as vice mayor for
2024.
2024. Yeah. Following year.
I'll ask the city clerk, when is the effective date?
What?
Is it effectively at the moment of the election or immediately thereafter?
It's usually the first of the year.
I believe it's the first of the year. I'll have to confirm that.
Okay, I thought it was effective the following meeting, but I don't care. I just wanted to know.
I will confirm that and let you know.
If the council wants to make
I'm
that
down
decision,
there.
the council can do so by vote as well.
I'm sorry?
If the council wants to make that decision, they can do so by vote as well.
Do you want to confirm January 1st?
Otherwise staff will come back with an answer for you.
Sounds good to me. Give you a break.
It doesn't matter to me. It's just a question of you and me swapping seats or what?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay.
Never mind. Doesn't matter.
I'd say the vice mayor for 2024 is Councilmember Perkins.
Yep.
So now he's vice mayor-elect, select or whatever it is. Okay, next item, please.
The next item is item 9.3, minute order number 2023-011, authorizing the mayor's designee to attend the United States Conference of Mayors 92nd Winter Meeting in Washington, D.C. on January 17th through the 19th, 2024.
Okay.
I'm available to go if the mayor wants to designate me for that purpose.
I would designate Scott to go because I think this is a big year for transportation, and you're going to find the Department of Energy is going to be one of your ones. So I would move that we send Vice Mayor to B. Perkins. What is it, January, whenever it is?
Yeah, for the winter meeting, right?
For the winter meetings.
And then hit the move.
I second that.
You want to hit your button now?
Need to be trained.
Okay, there it goes.
Okay.
No, that's good.
Okay, any further discussion?
I'll take my expedition coat with me. It was 14 degrees was a high yesterday in Washington.
I guarantee you, I'm not walking around the streets.
End the vote.
End vote, yes.
Scott, you're away.
It looks like you're gone.
Oh,
Oh, wait.
I'll vote yes.
He
I
votes
will,
yes.
I will
Fill it in.
correct it.
Okay. Oh, the highlight of
Is
the
there any
evening.
public comment on this?
No, there is no public comment.
Good. Next item, please.
So item number 10, city managers and city council members' comments, matters initiated.
All right, the highlight of the evening. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah, it's a short highlight. I do have a couple items to remind the public that this Saturday we do have our Bah Humbug run at 8 a.m. for the Kids Dash and 8:30 for the 5K race. And then later on that same day, we have our community tree lighting from 4 to 5:30 out here at Central Park. We'll have crafts, hot chocolate, letters to Santa, photos with Santa, sing-alongs, and also the tree lighting. And I just checked the forecast. There should be no rain. Last year it was a little cold and very wet, but everyone still enjoyed reviving that tradition. It was the first time in many years that we've conducted our holiday tree lighting in Central Park. So everyone's looking forward to that. And then if you do not have enough holiday festivities for this Saturday, next Saturday on the 9th, there's Holiday at the Farm at Forest Home Farms from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it's an old-fashioned holiday gathering. So 2 Saturdays in a row, lots of holiday activities, and that's just the start for this season. And with
Good.
that, that's my entire update.
Good to hear. Okay, who wants, Marisol, would you like to start us off?
Sure. So on the 16th of November, I had a Street Smarts meeting, and we were basically talking about what measures we can take to try to help create more safety and education around scooters and basically because and making sure that children especially are that people are using their helmets and driving at safe speeds. And so these were things that we had some great ideas about how to do that and encourage people to do that, especially students, through some positive feedback. For example, giving them some kind of reward if they have a good record for a month and they're coming to school and we see them wearing their helmets like they're supposed to be. Maybe like a Starbucks card. That was an example given. So really just kind of trying to look at it more from a positive perspective rather than kind of a negative feedback. Then on the 20th, we had I met with Councilmember Veros and some of our other staff about the revenue measure. And thereafter, let's see, on the 27th, the Climate Action Ad Hoc Council Committee with Mark and myself and met, as well as a couple of our city manager and deputy city manager, to just kind of continue to make progress to refine sort of the consideration between committee or commission, as well as other options possibly that could be on the table, and what that might look like, so that we could hopefully bring that forward soon before the public for public input as well. And that's about it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, actually, considering the holiday was stuffed in there, it was kind of short on meetings, but CCTA, the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, had a meeting, and our first presentation was really quite an interesting. West Contra Costa Transportation Advisory Committee has a program that they've done for a couple of years called the Travel Training Pilot Program. And they teach seniors and disabled how to use and access the fixed route and other transportation services. And they've held 26 workshops, 21 outings with 535 participants using 11 volunteers. And they ended up distributing 100 senior Clipper cards. This program is designed at the community level to introduce people how to use the transportation systems that are available to them. And in places where it's transportation dense, it really has a big impact. And even in places where the transportation isn't quite as dense, it still has an impact. And this is going to be developed countywide over time. And so I look forward to seeing it here. They actively recruit in senior centers and senior housing projects, and then working with medical providers and to help with disabled and teach them how to use transportation. There is a level of reluctance to do something new without assistance. And so this gets people beyond that hurdle. And I hope that, I hope it can come to San Ramon soon. I see a wonderful opportunity throughout the county, but in San Ramon included. We had a discussion on advancing the organization. It started off with what is the authorization basis of CCTA? And it comes from Public Utility Code and the Admin Code and as a congestion management agency. And so we have this authorization, and it kind of puts the guardrails on it, but it also opens up the field for what can we do and what we should be doing. Interesting, it was noted that when CCTA goes to these transportation things, often find that CCTA is far ahead of what most agencies are doing. Most agencies are still stuck in the, how can we build a road? How can we build another road? Or how can we widen the existing road? And CCTA is looking far beyond that with things like Innovate 680 and this transportation pilot training program. We also did a City of San Pablo medical trip one-seat pilot project. They found they had a large fraction of the medical appointments were missed because people couldn't get to them in a timely manner. And so we're helping to fund a pilot project of to get people from the City of San Pablo into their medical appointments. And then we had a discussion on the Contra Costa Countywide Transportation Plan 2050 vision and goals. That's going to be a multi-month project to develop our transportation plan. And that's it for me.
Sridhar, Mark?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. On the, I guess it was the 16th of November, I attended a MCE Board of Directors meeting. And there was a very interesting briefing by a company called Wellhead Power Exchange. They have a unit, it's a natural gas unit down in the Fresno area, and they are doing a hybrid modification. So they started out with 50 megawatt turbines for natural gas, but they've integrated battery technology in there, 16 megawatt storage. And this is going to allow some resource adequacy to be added to the part of the MCE's resource adequacy portfolio, and it helps keep the grid stable. So these are fast-starting turbines, and when you have a fast-starting turbine, you'll burn as little gas as possible, so it'll be better in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. They're having to modify some control systems and some emissions reduction units, but this will be a very responsive system. And so when the California ISO gives an order to shut off this particular site, normally that's a 30 to 60 minute shutdown process where things kind of keep burning, but they'll almost immediately be able to shut down, and so it'll be overall better and cleaner. So very interesting meeting. The other thing we did at that meeting, there was a membership analysis for an application by the city of Hercules. They'd applied to become a member of Marin Clean Energy, and we approved Hercules. That now goes to the executive committee for final approval and some technical things. The other couple other events I attended, one was a Veterans Resource Fair over at Diablo Valley College at the San Ramon campus. A lot of the veterans organizations that are local to the area, we heard from, American Legion was there, Blue Star Moms, Sentinels of Freedom, the Veterans Administration, Camp Parks was represented, the office of Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, others. It was a well-resourced, great to see a resource fair at that particular campus, because the normal Veterans Resource Office is in the Pleasant Hill campus, and they just don't have as many activities going on in San Ramon. So it was good to see something local on that. And then the other thing I attended just this past Saturday night was there was a youth cricket tournament banquet. 16 teams represented in a weekend tournament, but they had a banquet. It was great. Got to say a couple welcoming remarks and pass out a couple certificates and enjoy some good food and some good show. They had some good presentations as well. And that's it for me.
Okay. And I have nothing to report, just to read. Sridhar, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No worries. On November 15th, I attended Arts Advisory Committee meeting on behalf of Council Member Rubio as a backup. Art Advisory Committee members and the staff reviewed Arts Summit themes and recommendations. There are 5 themes that they reviewed. The first one is artist communication and collaboration. Second one is arts facilities and resources. The third one is arts education and programs. Fourth one is arts accessibility and connectivity. All these themes were developed from the survey results, which they completed after the prior event of the summit. So they involved committee members, local business owners, and staff. They all put together these fantastic 4 themes. And also they reviewed annual report for 2023, which we'll be getting the update on that. So it's pretty much 2023 and 2024 goals they have on similar lines. Some of them are review the current art programs and classes with the city, and review current artist to commission an original piece. So they are going to review those, and then select artists to commission for on this artwork. And the third one is review art gallery exhibits. Fourth is review public art proposals. Fifth is review cultural growth grant application. Sixth is encourage arts advisory committee members to be ambassadors for arts programs within the city. They need to encourage so that the committee members going to attend those events. And then the seventh is assist the city in updating San Ramon 5-year cultural plan. Eighth is review programming and events at the art center. And the last one, final one, is the ninth, discuss and explore a future public art project within the city. So these are the goals. Most of them are from 2023. They are rolling out to 2024, similar goals. So that's on Art Advisory Committee. And then November 27th, that is yesterday, attended San Ramon Historic Foundation. San Ramon Historic Foundation is very glad that they are receiving a lot of love from city because the Boone House renovation, 100K, which is granted. So they are very happy about that. And also another good news for them is the sheep barn flooring concrete that is also city helping with the initial 15% funding so that they can move forward with that project. Even that project is that is co-funded with the San Ramon Historic Foundation. And then on Friday, we have, as already City Manager Steven mentioned, that lights on the barn, which is going to be on this Friday, coming Friday. And then they have a holiday on farm on December 9th, that which you already mentioned. And then another good news is that their gift shop is doing really good. They collected $3,000 in November. Typically, just for benchmark, they used to collect $2,000 per year, but then they got only in 1 month, November, $3K. And another one more good news is for them is they received a grant from Rotary to buy a manure spreader for $1,200. So those are, and on the membership, they have 131 members. Their target this year is to get to 150. So please help. If you have any members that are interested to join, please let them know. And on the event side, Craft Feed, Jan 27th. Please buy your tickets. Hopefully, I'll see you all there. And then, okay, and November 20th, as Council Member Rubio mentioned, we attended our city with the city staff and the consulting services about revenue measure survey results. On community side, on November 26th, along with Commissioner Will Dollery and council members and from Pleasanton, attended San Ramon Cricket Association Youth MLC Thanksgiving Tournament Award Ceremony. That was Saturday, they did it, the banquet, and then Sunday they did the award ceremony for, so I attended that one. So that's pretty much my audit. Thank you.
I had one thing I wanted to add. San Ramon Rotary also donated $3,000 to the library, our San Ramon Library, to buy a 3D printer.
Oh.
So that'll be kind of cool. That's something that not every library has, is a 3D printer. Don't know much about the particular one they've chosen, but be real interested to see when it's up and running.
They're going to get Sridhar to hook it up.
Yeah.
My son, he always asks me about it.
Steve will be over there. Yeah, okay, excellent.
It's crazy. Okay, and I have no reports to give you tonight, just a reminder that the mayor's conference is Thursday. It's an ugly sweater contest. You could win a free admission to the next mayor's conference without the dinner, just that you come listen to the business meeting.
Oh, God.
It should be exciting. Okay, next item, please.
So
Or is there
before-
any public comment on this?
There is no public comment. Before we move on, I did confirm that Councilmember Perkins will take the position of vice mayor at the next city council meeting on December 12th.
What did you get out of that, Tristan? Okay,
There we
next
go.
item.
Next item is adjournment.
We are adjourned to the next meeting
Yay.
on the